For more on what the markets are doing on Wall Street in particular, let's go live to Michelle Schneider from Market Gauge. How are you today? Good to see you.
Good to see you.
So is the vibe at the moment that we are expecting the economic recovery to perhaps rebound faster and more positively than we may have expected earlier? Is that what you're sort of seeing over in the States at the moment?
Well, there's sort of a yes and sort of a no, because a lot of that's already in the market. And as we're hovering around new all-time highs in the Dow and the S&P 500, NASDAQ is trying to play some catch-up, and the Russells actually took a bit of a tumble today. So I think the market is on a serious state of pause here, looking for something new to sink its teeth into other than the recycling of what we already know. That with the vaccine rollout, things are getting better. There's only a handful of states that are still having issues with COVID at this point. That's, of course, a complete distinction from what's happening globally, where there's countries like France that are still shut down. And so it's almost like the market here doesn't really know what to sink its teeth into. Are we going to continue to grow or not? And that's, I think, a lot's going to depend also what happens here with Biden's infrastructure plan and all of the buzz around that.
Yeah, so how have you seen that? Of course, it's taken place over the past couple of weeks or so. Clearly there are both sides of the argument, as I think we discussed last week or the week before. But what's the latest? What are you hearing through, investor sentiment when it comes to that package?
Well, today Biden came out and said that he would be willing to compromise. In fact, that he expects to compromise, particularly on the whole idea of raising the corporate tax rate to 28%. I didn't see any specific details on what the compromise would be, but it is interesting that he would say that because, again, it can be interpreted two ways. It can be interpreted as strength or it can be interpreted as weakness. And so right now, I know the market has been looking a lot at what Yellen's been talking about, which is a corporate tax rate globally so that U.S. companies aren't incentivized to go outside of the U.S. But all of that right now is, I think, another big reason why the market is sort of in this divergence here, where the leaders, which were transportation and the Russell 2000 and the retail sectors, have taken a little bit of a pause and a little bit of a correction, while the mega cap stocks, only a few of them, are rocketing to new highs. Some of the blue chips are doing well in legacy stocks, but yet a lot of the other sort of weight of the market that has been helping the market all along have actually fallen off a little bit. And of course, there's also energy, which is sitting here wondering what to do next as well.
Let's have a look at China for a moment. I believe they've announced a digital yuan. So how does this work? Does it have any impact on Bitcoin and that community moving forward, do you think?
Well, because the yuan right now is more of a domestic play, and also it is being driven by Alipay, which is actually a private-owned company in China. It's not state-owned. They will have to work through some of those issues, and of course they're looking at a pilot program to get it rolled out more internationally. But the whole idea of Bitcoin is decentralized in that it's not government controlled, and a digital currency will be government controlled. So as we're seeing these sort of things happen around the world where governments are stepping in, like what just happened with Korea, the kimchi effect on the Bitcoin, there's workarounds, and I think the same thing would happen. What I think could be more impacted if this really comes to pass and digital currency winds up being something really that takes hold would be maybe the threat more to the U.S. dollar. And that's what we're watching very carefully, because the dollar has slipped, even though it firmed a little bit today, it has slipped off of its most recent highs after a nice little rally off the recent lows.
Let's stay on cryptocurrency for a moment. Ethereum is something that you're watching closely, I know that. So what are you seeing with Ethereum over recent times?
Well, since we talked last week, it had a huge move up. It rallied and made new all-time highs, and then took a big kind of dive today. Again, probably because of some of this news that has come out, more investigations into regulations in other countries, like, again, going back to Korea. But what's so interesting about the Ethereum market is that even though it has sold off from its new all-time highs, it's finding a base, and the whole cryptocurrency space seems to be reducing its level of volatility, which will ultimately lead to more satisfaction by investors that they're not going to get hosed if they get into the space. So right now, I think the biggest news that came out today is that Fidelity, Square, and Coinbase are forming a lobbying group to head over to Washington to try to advocate for some level of standardization and possibly also to lobby more for some kind of an ETF, which still has not been able to pass here in the United States. So I think the outlook is still great for Ethereum and all of the cryptocurrency space.
Yeah, that's really interesting. We'll watch that group closely and see what they can do. Michelle, thank you once again. Great wrap and enjoy your day. We'll talk really soon.
Thank you. You have a good one.
Michelle Schneider there from Market Gauge. Stay